I gifted my parents a $425,000 Seaside mansion for their 50th anniversary. When I arrived, my mother was crying. My name's Olivia, 37, neurosurgeon, eldest child, and lifelong fixer. I pulled into the driveway of the dream house, the one I'd bought for them. I was holding a chocolate cake for their 50th anniversary. I was smiling. I felt good. I had finally given them peace, a $425,000 sanctuary. Then I walked inside. The smell of stale beer and fast food hit me first. The front door was wide open. I saw my mother in the kitchen, her back to me, her shoulders shaking. She was crying. My father was sitting in a hard chair, trembling, looking small and terrified. My sister's laugh echoed from the hallway. Then my brother-in-law, Kyle, saw my dad. He pointed a finger and shouted, "This is my house! Get out!" My sister laughed again. The whole house went silent when I stepped out of the shadow of the hallway. That day, I learned that kindness without boundaries is just another kind of weakness. Before I tell you how everything flipped, like and subscribe. Drop a comment. Where are you watching from? I learned to read adult silence before I learned to read chapter books. My childhood was spent in a small, cramped apartment where the walls were thin and the money was thinner. The smell of our apartment was a mix of boiled potatoes and my mother's anxiety. I grew up translating adult panic. Rent's late. That was my mother, Ruth, her voice a low hum of fear at the kitchen table. She would be shuffling envelopes. The white ones were fine. The ones with red lettering were the enemy. She would move them from one pile to another, as if shuffling them would change the numbers inside. We'll figure it out. That was my father, Sam. His voice always too loud, too cheerful when things were bad. It was a fake, brittle happiness that meant he was terrified. He worked in construction, and his body was always tired. But his voice was the most tired thing about him. "We'll figure it out" was his prayer. It was his curse. It meant, "I have no idea what to do. Don't tell your father." That was my mother again, pulling me aside after a phone call with the electric company. Her eyes would be red. "Just be quiet tonight. Play in your room. Don't ask for anything." I became the family barometer. I knew what kind of night it would be by the sound of my father's key in the lock. A heavy-footed stomp meant he'd lost a bid. A long, slow turn meant he was just tired. A jiggle and a curse meant he'd been drinking. At 10 years old, I was the one saying, "It'll be fine, Mom." I was the one who would find her crying over the grocery receipts, her shoulders shaking. I would rub her back. "It's okay. I'm not very hungry anyway." It was a lie. I was always hungry. But her anxiety was louder than my hunger. I wasn't a child. I was a tiny, stressed-out manager. I started checking the mail before my parents got home. I would take the red-stamped envelopes and hide them under my mattress. I thought, if they didn't see the bills, the panic wouldn't start. I thought I could protect them. It never worked. The phone calls would start. The power would go out. And my mother would cry, "I don't know what happened." I would just sit in my room, in the dark, and promise myself, never. I will never live like this. My sister, Julia, was 2 years younger. She had a different strategy. She created noise. She was the screamer, the artist, the one who felt things deeply. While I was learning to be invisible and useful, Julia learned to be loud and demanding. And it worked. Our parents, exhausted by the baseline anxiety of just existing, would give in to her just to have a moment of quiet. I remember my 12th birthday. I had asked for a specific science kit. I wanted it more than anything. I knew money was tight. I heard them whispering, "We can't, Sam." I know. We'll figure it out." The day of my birthday, Julia threw a screaming tantrum because her shoes were ugly. She wanted new ones. The ones all her friends had. She cried for 3 hours. She said she would die if she had to go to school in those shoes. My parents caved. My father's face was gray as he handed her the money. I got no present. Just a small cake. "You understand, Olivia," my mother whispered to me, her hand gripping my shoulder. "You're the strong one." "She's fragile." I learned my lesson. My needs did not matter. My performance did. Julia learned her lesson too. Her feelings were a weapon that always got her what she wanted. So I studied. I studied until my eyes burned. I studied when my friends were at parties. I studied when Julia was having another major life crisis in the next room, slamming doors because her first boyfriend broke up with her. I put myself through school on scholarships and brutal back-to-back jobs. I served tables. I cleaned labs. I didn't sleep for most of my 20s. I didn't just want success. I needed stability like it was oxygen. I became a neurosurgeon. I specialized in fixing the most complicated, delicate things in the world. My life was sterile, controlled, and quiet. My apartment was all glass and white walls. I had a bank account that didn't make my heart stop. I had silence. But you can't fix your own past. I would call home. They were still in the same apartment. The same thin walls. The same smell of old potatoes. My father's health was failing. His cough was deep and wet. My mother's voice was still small, still full of worry. They were approaching their 50th anniversary, and they had nothing. Nothing to show for a lifetime of hard work except debt, anxiety, and 2 daughters, one who escaped and one who just kept taking. I went to visit them a few months before the anniversary. My mother was trying to hide a new set of envelopes. This time, they were from a pharmacy. My dad's heart medication. Mom, what's this? It's nothing, dear. The copay just went up. We'll figure it out. That phrase. We'll figure it out. It hit me like a physical blow. They were in their late 60s, and they were still living on the edge of a cliff. They had spent 50 years figuring it out. They deserved to rest. That was the moment I decided. It wasn't just a gift. It was an extraction. I was going to extract them from that life of fear. I was going to give them one place on earth that was solid. I wanted to give them something that couldn't collapse. Something that couldn't be taken away by a bad month or a late check. A place that smelled like salt and safety. It took me 6 months of secret, obsessive searching. I didn't want a mansion. I wasn't trying to show off. I was trying to build a fortress. A fortress of peace. I finally found it. A small blue house by the sea in a quiet community in Maine. It was $425,000. It wasn't big. It wasn't grand. It had 2 bedrooms, a small kitchen, and a big wooden deck. But it was peaceful. It had a porch for my father to sit on. It had a kitchen with a big window over the sink for my mother, so she could look at something other than a brick wall. It had a spare room for me, for when I visited. It was a home where they could finally, after 50 long years, just breathe. I paid for it in cash. I put the deed in their names. I wanted them to own, completely and totally, one solid thing on this earth. I wanted them to be safe. I thought I had finally fixed the one problem I couldn't fix with my hands. I thought I had finally made them safe. I was so wrong. I bought the house quietly. I closed on a Tuesday while I was supposed to be at a medical conference in Boston. I rented a car and drove the 2 hours up the coast. The drive itself felt like the first clean breath I'd taken in years. It wasn't the manic relief of passing an exam or the adrenaline of a successful surgery. It was a deep, quiet, solid feeling. I was finally fixing the original wound. I spent 3 days there alone before I told them. The house was empty. It echoed. The previous owners had left it clean, but it had no life. I was going to fill it with peace. I didn't just buy the house. I prepared it. I wanted them to walk in and not have to do a single thing. Not to worry. Not to lift a finger. I hired painters to color the walls a soft, creamy white. I hired a cleaning crew to make the old hardwood floors shine until they looked like honey. Then I went shopping. This was the part I had dreamed about. I went to a real furniture store, not the flat-pack places of my college years. I bought a big, soft sofa, the color of oatmeal. I sat on 10 different ones until I found the one that was perfect for napping. I bought a sturdy recliner for my father, one with good back support. I bought a solid wood kitchen table. I went to 3 different grocery stores. At the first one, I bought the basics: milk, eggs, bread, butter, cheese. At the second, the fancy one, I bought the luxuries. The expensive orange juice my mother always looked at but never bought. The good coffee my father loved, the kind that smelled like chocolate. I bought a bottle of the nice wine Mom only drank at weddings. I bought olive oil in a dark green bottle. I bought pasta in strange, beautiful shapes. At the third, a local farm stand. I bought fresh apples and potatoes and onions. I stocked the pantry. I filled it with pasta, soup, and baking supplies for my mother. Flour, sugar, vanilla. I imagined her baking cookies, the house smelling like something sweet instead of old worry. I stocked the medicine cabinet. I bought bandages, aspirin, cough drops, and a 3-month supply of my dad's heart medication. I wanted him to see a full bottle, not a half-empty one. I bought new sheets, thick towels, and 2 plush bathrobes. I bought a coffee maker. I bought a new kettle. I set up all the utilities. The electric, the water, the gas, the internet. I paid all of them. A year in advance. I paid the property taxes. 5 years in advance. There would be no envelopes. No late notices. No panic. When I was done, I stood in the quiet living room and listened. The only sound was the distant rhythmic sigh of the waves. I found a small wooden recipe box at a local antique shop. It felt warm in my hands. I put it in the silverware drawer, the one right by the new kettle. Inside, on a single thick index card, I wrote a note. My hand was shaking. For late mornings, loud laughter, and lemon tea. Happy 50th. I love you. Love, oh. That was the only thing I left of myself. The reveal was the hardest part. I drove to their old apartment. The smell of the hallway hit me. Old carpet. I knocked. I'm taking you out for your anniversary, I announced. A special dinner up the coast. You'll need to pack an overnight bag. My mother immediately started to worry. Oh, Olivia, that's too much. We can't. And the cost. And the drive? Just trust me, Mom, I said, already packing a small bag for her. I put in her favorite sweater. My father was silent. He hated surprises. He associated new with debt. Olivia, what's this really about? It's about your 50th anniversary, Dad. Just get in the car. The drive was tense. My mother kept looking at me, trying to read my face. Olivia, this is too nice. Are you sure? The gas. Mom, please. Just look at the ocean. When I pulled into the driveway of the blue house, the sun was just beginning to set. The house was glowing. Oh, Olivia, Mom breathed, her hand on the car door. What a beautiful house. Who lives here? Are we visiting your friends? My hands were shaking. I turned off the car. The silence was huge. You do. They stared at me. Just stared. What do you mean, honey? Dad asked, his voice rough. I mean, it's yours. Happy anniversary. It's all yours. I handed my father the keys. They were on a simple, heavy keychain. He wouldn't take them. He just shook his head. This is a joke. This isn't funny, Olivia. We can't afford this. Don't do this to us. My heart broke. He thought I was playing a cruel trick on him. It's not a joke, Dad, I said gently. It's paid for. It's yours. It's in your name. There is no mortgage. There are no bills. It's a gift. Just open the door. He fumbled with the lock. His hands were shaking so badly he couldn't get the key in. I had to put my hand over his and guide it. The door swung open. My mother walked in first. Her hand flew to her mouth. She made a small sound like a gasp. She ran her hand along the back of the new sofa. She walked into the kitchen and saw the new kettle, the full fruit bowl. I watched her. She opened the fridge. She just stood there staring at the full shelves. At the orange juice. She started to cry. Not the anxious, thin tears I grew up with. These were different. They were deep, shuddering sobs of shock. Of release, my dad touched the banister. He ran his hand up and down the smooth, solid wood. He walked from room to room, touching the walls. He looked out the back window at the small yard and the sliver of ocean visible between the trees. It's solid, he whispered. He wasn't talking about the house. He was talking about the feeling. Mom, still crying, opened the silverware drawer and found the recipe box. She found my note, she read it, and she collapsed into a kitchen chair. She held that little card to her chest and just wept. Sam? Sam, come see. Come see. My father read the note. He didn't cry. He just nodded, his face working. He walked over to me, pulled me into an awkward, strong hug, and buried his face in my hair. Thank you, he whispered. Thank you, Livy. We sat on the deck that night. I had brought blankets. We watched the sky turn from purple to black. The gulls were calling in the distance. My parents didn't say much. They just held hands. I keep waiting for someone to knock on the door and tell us to leave, Mom whispered, her head on Dad's shoulder. No one is coming. Mom, it's yours. I don't think I've ever felt this. Still, she said. My father just stared at the dark water. I haven't slept through the night in 30 years, he said, to no one in particular. I think I might tonight. For the first time in my entire 37 years, I saw peace on their faces. I saw the lines of worry around my father's mouth soften. I saw my mother breathing slowly, deeply. I thought, I did it. It's over. They're safe. I finally fixed it. That feeling of peace lasted for 48 beautiful, quiet hours. The peace ended with a phone call. I was at the hospital, scrubbing out after a long, complicated procedure on a patient's spine. I was tired, but I felt good. I felt successful. I looked at my phone and saw Mom. I smiled. The last 2 days had been a series of happy, slightly bewildered texts. A deer in the yard. Dad is napping on the porch. In the middle of the day, I baked cookies. They smell like the house. I answered. How's the ocean, Mom? Silence. Not a good silence. It was a thin, hollow, stretched tight silence. Mom? Oh, Olivia. Her voice was small. Too small. It was the voice from my childhood. The I'm trying to pretend it's okay, but it's not voice. The don't tell your father voice. My stomach dropped. It was a cold, familiar feeling. What is it? Are you okay? Is Dad okay? Oh, yes, everyone's fine. It's just, well, your sister called. My blood went cold. I leaned against the tiled wall of the scrub room. What did she want, Mom? She heard about the house. I don't know how, maybe Aunt Clara. And she's just so excited for us. She was crying on the phone. She was so happy. I knew Julia's tears. They were a tool. Mom? And she just wants to see it. Mom rushed on, her voice getting higher. She's going to bring the kids for the afternoon. Just for lunch. To celebrate with us. Isn't that nice? I closed my eyes. Mom, you don't have to let her come right now. You just got there. You are still settling in. You are allowed to have your peace. A pause. The long-waited pause I knew so well. It meant I was asking her to do something she was afraid to do. It meant I was asking her to set a boundary. Oh, Olivia, don't be silly, she said. Her voice strained and bright. It's your sister. What's the harm in that? It's just for an afternoon. Mom, are you sure? Yes. It's just family. I'll call you later, dear. She hung up before I could say anything else. I felt a knot of dread tighten in my chest. I couldn't focus on my charts. I knew Julia. Seeing was never just seeing. It was staking a claim. Lunch was never just lunch. It was a negotiation. I called her back that evening. No answer. I called my dad. He answered, but his voice was strained. Dad? Is everything okay? Did Julia come? She's here, Olivia, he said. I could hear Julia in the background. She was laughing, a loud, shrieking laugh. I heard Kyle's voice, a low rumble. Kyle's with her? I asked, my grip tightening on the phone. Yes, they decided to stay for dinner. They brought steaks. It was nice. He didn't sound like it was nice. Where are they now? Julia is giving the kids a bath in your mother's tub. The big one. I heard Kyle in the background. Hey, Sam. Where's the good whiskey? Don't hide the good stuff. I have to go, Olivia. The line went dead. He hung up on me. The next morning, I woke up to a text message. It was from Mom. It must have been sent very early. Just letting you know Julia and Kyle stayed the night. The kids just love the beach so much. And it was too late to drive back. They're helping us unpack. See you soon. My hands were shaking. Helping us unpack? I had unpacked everything. There was nothing to unpack. I called immediately. Mom answered on the fourth ring. She was whispering. I can't talk, she hissed. Mom, what is going on? I could hear the TV, a loud cartoon. Kyle's asleep. On the new sofa. Julia and the kids are in your room. The guest room. They stayed? Mom, this is not okay. You need to tell them to leave. That is your house. I will. Don't you worry. It's fine. We're fine. Julia's she's just having a hard time. Kyle's job. What about Kyle's job? He lost it. They're just stressed, Olivia. They just need a few days. A few days by the ocean. It's not a big deal. A few days. I knew what a few days meant. It was the same as just for lunch. I'm coming, I said. No. Olivia, don't make trouble. I'm coming. I left the hospital. I told my service I had a family emergency. It was the truest thing I'd ever said. I drove. I was so angry. My vision was blurry at the edges. And then I did the stupidest thing. I stopped at a bakery. I bought a chocolate cake. I bought a bottle of sparkling cider. Why? Because I'm a fixer. Because even then I was trying to make it okay. I was trying to pretend this was just a normal family visit. I thought, if I show up happy, if I bring a gift, they'll be nice. They'll see we're all family. We can talk about this. I can manage this. I was a 37-year-old neurosurgeon, and I was still that 10-year-old girl, hiding the bills, trying to manage my family's emotions. I pulled into the driveway. It wasn't a home. It was an occupation. The small, neat lawn was gone. It was littered with plastic toys, wet towels, and an inflatable pool noodle draped over the porch railing. 2 empty beer cans sat on the steps. The front door was wide open. It was slamming against the doorframe in the sea breeze. The smell hit me first. I was still holding the stupid cake. It wasn't the clean, salty air and new paint smell from 3 days ago. It was stale beer, cold fast food grease, and the faint, sour smell of a wet dog. I walked inside. The beautiful new rug in the entryway was covered in muddy footprints and sand. Suitcases and duffel bags were exploded all over the living room, their contents spilling out. The TV was blasting. The kids were jumping on the new oatmeal-colored sofa, the one Kyle had slept on with their shoes on. They were eating bright orange chips and wiping their hands on the cushions. A dog I'd never seen before, a big, shaggy, wet thing, was asleep on the new recliner. My father's chair. I saw my sister Julia. She was on the other sofa, her feet, in dirty sneakers, up on the new coffee table. She was scrolling through her phone. She didn't look up. Then I heard Kyle. He was in the kitchen. He was on the phone. "Yeah, man, it's sick. Right on the water. My wife's parents. Well, her sister, really. Just gave it to them. We're set for the whole summer." Then I saw my parents. My mother was in the kitchen. She had her back to me. She was standing at the sink, the one with the beautiful window. She was gripping a dish towel. Just gripping it, her knuckles white. She was a statue. She was pretending she wasn't there. My father was sitting on a hard kitchen chair that had been dragged into the living room near the blasting TV. He was small. He looked 100 years old. He was staring at his hands, which were shaking. Kyle hung up the phone. He saw me. He was holding a beer. He was wearing the new plush bathrobe I had bought for my dad. He didn't look guilty. He looked annoyed. "Oh, look," he said, not smiling. "The money train has arrived. Relax, Olivia. We're just settling in." Julia finally looked up from her phone. "It's a family home, right?" she said, her voice bored. "Family's supposed to share." That's when I heard my father's voice. It was so quiet I almost missed it. I don't think this is what Olivia wanted." Kyle laughed. A short, ugly sound. He turned to my dad. "This is my house," he said, jabbing a finger. "Our house, family, get out if you don't like it." My sister laughed. A little titter from behind her phone. I set the cake down on the counter. The house went completely silent. To understand Julia, you have to understand our family. I'm standing in this ruined, occupied house, but I'm seeing my entire childhood. I was the responsible one. Julia was the fragile one. When we were kids, I was praised for being quiet, for getting good grades, for not causing trouble, for understanding. My understanding was just me swallowing my own needs. Julia was coddled for being loud, for being sensitive, for feeling things so deeply. Her feelings were just tantrums. My parents, exhausted by life, just took the path of least resistance. When Julia threw a fit because she wanted the more expensive cereal, she got it. It was just easier than listening to her scream. When I quietly ate my oatmeal, I was praised for being a good girl. This was the rule. I was responsible for my actions, and I was also responsible for Julia's actions. I remember when I was 12, Julia, who was 10, broke a neighbor's window with a baseball. She ran and hid. When the neighbor came over yelling, my parents looked at me. "Olivia, you were outside. You should have been watching her." Julia was too fragile to be yelled at. I was the one who had to apologize. I was the one who had to do chores for that neighbor for 2 months to pay for the window. Julia never said thank you. She just expected it. As we got older, this dynamic hardened into fact. I went to med school. Julia went to art school, dropped out after a semester, met Kyle, and declared herself a freelance artist and dreamer. Her rough patch started when she was 20 and never, ever ended. I became the family's financial shock absorber. Every time she fell, I paid the landing fee. I was in my residency. I was working 100-hour weeks. I was living on hospital cafeteria food and stale coffee. I was drowning in student debt. I was, for the first time, as poor as my parents had been. Julia called me crying. "Leo needs braces," she wailed. Leo was her oldest. The kids at school are making fun of him. They call him Snaggletooth. It's ruining his self-esteem, Olivia. "He cries every night. Julia, I can't," I told her, my head aching. I'm really tight right now. I have nothing. Oh, right. Tight, she scoffed, the tears vanishing instantly. I forgot. You the big shot doctor. It's just 4,000, Olivia. It's for your nephew. Don't you love him? I guess you don't. The guilt? It was a physical thing. It felt like choking. She was right. I was a doctor. I had a future. She had nothing. It was my responsibility. I drained my small emergency savings account, the one I kept in case my car broke down. I sent her the money. You're a lifesaver, Liv, she texted. 2 weeks later, I was scrolling through Facebook. She had posted a new album. Miami Fun. It was her and Kyle drinking on a beach, laughing. The photos were date-stamped. She had taken the trip before she called me about the braces. She had run out of money on vacation and then called me to fix it, using her son's teeth as a weapon. When I confronted her, she wasn't even sorry. My mental health is important, Olivia. I needed that break. You wouldn't understand. You just work all the time. That was just the beginning. 2 years ago, I got a 3 a.m. call. It was Julia, hysterical. Olivia, you have to help. We're getting evicted. The landlord is a monster. He's throwing the kids on the street. Today, right now, I was on call. I was exhausted. Julia, what happened? You were fine last week? I just sent you money for your car. Kyle lost his job. It wasn't his fault. His boss is jealous of him. They're all against him. We have nowhere to go. The kids are crying, the panic in her voice. It sounded just like my mother's. It was my trigger. We'll figure it out. I wired her $6,000. It was my bonus. The money I was saving for a down payment. It was for a new deposit and first month's rent. I found out later from my dad that Kyle hadn't been fired. He quit. He couldn't handle the negative energy of the office. He'd been unemployed for a month before Julia called me. They had just waited. They waited until the last possible second, until it was an emergency, because they knew I couldn't say no to an emergency. My $6,000 wasn't for a crisis. It was a consequence. And I had erased it. I wasn't a sister. I was a utility. I was a resource. I looked at my Venmo history once. It was a long, scrolling diary of my guilt and their entitlement. Julia electric bill. Kyle job suit. He needed a new suit for an interview. He didn't get the job. He kept the suit and billed me for it. Leo field trip. Julia couldn't afford it. She'd just gotten a $300 haircut and posted a selfie. Treating myself. Julia, car broke. Julia, groceries. Julia's again. Julia, please, it's an emergency. For years, I told myself I was helping. I thought my generosity could somehow sand down the chaos in her life. I thought if I just gave her enough money, enough support, enough stability, she would finally find her footing. She would finally be okay. I was wrong. All I did was teach them where to knock. I taught them that actions had no consequences because Olivia would always be there to clean up the mess. I wasn't helping her. I was enabling her. I was funding her dysfunction. And Kyle was worse. He didn't even pretend to be grateful. He saw me as a fool. He saw my generosity as weakness. He married into a family with a built-in safety net. And he was happy to fall against it as hard as he could. When they heard about the house, they didn't see a $425,000 gift for two tired, elderly parents. They didn't see a sanctuary. They didn't see peace. They saw the biggest payout I had ever provided. They saw a free beach house. They saw a resource they could liquidate. In their minds, my money was family money. And since they were family, it was their money. The house wasn't a gift from me to my parents. It was an asset that belonged to the system, and I was just the idiot who paid for it. Looking at Kyle, wearing my father's robe in a house I bought, I finally understood. My generosity hadn't taught them kindness. It had taught them greed. I had spent my entire life trying to fix my family. I bought a house to fix their anxiety, but I was the one who built the road that led Julia and Kyle straight to its front door. I was the one who taught them to knock, and I was the one who had, until this very second, always answered. This wasn't an intrusion. This was an invoice. This was the bill for my entire life of helping, and it was finally due. The thud of the cake box on the clean kitchen counter was the loudest sound in the world. My sister's snicker died in her throat. Kyle's mouth snapped shut. The cartoon on the TV was still babbling, but the kids, sensing the change, went still and quiet. Even the dog on my father's chair lifted its head, whining. My mother flinched. My father's head came up, his eyes meeting mine. In them, I saw a lifetime of shame. I looked at Kyle, still wearing my father's robe. I looked at Julia, her dirty sneakers still propped up on the new coffee table. "Everyone to the living room," I said. My voice was not loud. It was not shaking. It was the same voice I use when I tell a nurse to hand me a specific instrument. It was a voice that does not expect to be questioned. Julia, out of sheer reflex, started to protest. "We're in the living room, Olivia." "God, don't be so—" "Get your feet off the table," I said. "And tell your husband to take off my father's bathrobe." Kyle bristled. "Hey now." "I was just cold." "Now," I said. The children were already cowering. The older one, Leo, slid off the sofa and stood by the wall, his eyes wide. He knew children always know. Julia, for the first time, looked uncertain. She slowly swung her legs off the table. Kyle looked at her, then at me. He let out a puff of angry air, but went into the hallway. I heard him rustling his things. My mother was still a statue at the sink. "Mom, Dad, please come and sit down." My father stood up from the hard kitchen chair. He looked like an old man. He walked over to my mother and gently took her arm. He led her to the sofa. They sat down, side by side, their hands clutched together. Kyle came back, now in his own stained sweatpants and a t-shirt. He and Julia stood near the armchair, a united front of resentment. They looked like teenagers caught at a party. I walked to the briefcase I had left by the door. I hadn't even realized I'd brought it in. It was my work bag. I placed it on the coffee table next to the greasy chip crumbs. I clicked the latches open. "I am so glad you're both here," I said, my voice calm. "It saves me a lot of trouble. You've brought all your things in. You're helping. You've made it clear you plan to stay. It's a family home," Kyle said, his confidence returning. We're family. We're here to help." "That's a lie," I said. I pulled out a stack of papers. "But I appreciate you committing to it." I laid out 5 documents on the coffee table. I spread them out like a hand of cards. "What is this?" Julia asked, her voice high. Are you trying to sue us?" "This," I said, tapping the first paper, "is the deed to this house. As you can see, the owners are Samuel Miller and Ruth Miller." I pointed to my parents. "Not Julia Miller. Not Kyle. Whatever your last name is." "That's just a piece of paper," Kyle scoffed. "This," I said, tapping the second document, "is the certificate of trust. I'm a neurosurgeon. I like to be precise. I knew when I bought this house that my parents would be vulnerable. I knew that their kindness, their fragility, as you've always called it, Julia, is a liability." My mother winced. "This house," I continued, "is held in an irrevocable trust, the Samuel and Ruth Miller Peace Trust. It's a very specific trust. It states that they are the sole residents. The property cannot be sold, mortgaged, or rented in whole or in part without my signature as the trustee. It states that any non-owner staying longer than 72 hours without my written consent is in violation of the trust." Julia's face went blank. She was processing. It's just lawyer stuff," Kyle stammered, but the color was draining from his face. "That wouldn't hold up. They're the owners. They are the beneficiaries, Kyle. I am the trustee. I control the asset for them, to protect them. From people like you. You... Julia was speechless. "You did that to us? You did that behind our backs?" "No, Julia," I said, my voice still quiet. "I did it for our parents, to protect their gift. I did it because I knew you. I knew this." I gestured around the wrecked room. "Was what you would do. I knew you didn't see a home for Mom and Dad. You saw a free summer rental. How dare you?" she shrieked. "And I know that," I said. "Because of this." I laid down the third document. It was a printout from my computer. "What's that?" my dad whispered. "That," I said, "is the Airbnb listing Julia posted this morning." I turned it so my parents could see. The color photo of their new home. The title Julia had written, "Cozy Seaside Getaway, Summer Fun, $350 night." My mother made a sound. A small wounded animal sound. You were renting our house?" my father asked. He looked at Julia. His face was not angry. "It was just broken. It's just an idea," Julia said, her voice frantic. "To help, to make money for them. You don't understand. This house is expensive to run. I paid the taxes for 5 years," I said. "I paid the utilities for 1 year. The house is free and clear." "What expenses, Julia?" "The beer Kyle is drinking. The chips your kids are grinding into the sofa? You think you're so much better than us? She yelled. I think I'm more prepared. This, I said, tapping the fourth document, is a list of the friends who had already pre-booked on Venmo. Your friend Amy, your cousin Chloe. You had the whole summer booked out. You were planning to put mom and dad in the small bedroom. The in-law suite, you called it, while your friends paid to stay in their home. Kyle laughed. A real, actual laugh. It was the most shocking sound I had ever heard. So what? He said. He crossed his arms, puffing up his chest. It's a smart idea. It's family money. We're family. We're just making the asset work for us. Don't be weird about it, Olivia. The room went silent. Family money, I repeated. I nodded slowly. I looked at my dad's shaking hands. I looked at my mom, who was now crying silently, tears just rolling down her cheeks. You're right, Kyle. This is a family matter. I stood up. I walked to the front door. He was right. It was family money, my money. The money I had bled for, worked 100-hour weeks for, missed my own life for. The money that had paid for Julia's braces, Julia's rent, Julia's car, Julia's entire adult life. I looked at the lock on the front door. The new heavy-duty deadbolt I had paid for, I turned back to them. You're right, Kyle. We are family, I said. And you have 60 seconds to start packing your bags. He laughed again. Or what? What? You'll kick us out? I told you we're tenants. We have rights. I just looked at him. I looked at Julia, who was hiding behind him. I looked at my parents, who were hiding on the sofa. I paid for this house, I said. I own the trust. And I am telling you to get out. Make me, he sneered. I picked up my briefcase. I closed it. Click, click. I looked him dead in the eye. You don't get a key. The air in the room was so thick I could barely breathe. Kyle was still sneering. He thought he had won. He thought I was all talk, just like I had always been. All my life I had been the checkbook, the one who caved, the one who paid for the braces, the rent, the emergencies. I was the fixer, the enabler. He thought I was weak. Julia saw his confidence and her own returned. She stepped out from behind him. She tried sugar first. It was always her first move. Liv, come on, she said, her voice dripping with fake concern. She even took a step toward me. Don't be like this. We're helping Olivia. Mom and Dad, they can't manage this big place all by themselves. We were just setting up an income stream for them, so they wouldn't have to ask you for everything. The audacity of it. The lie was so clean, so practiced, I didn't move. Helping? I repeated. My voice was still low. Were you helping when you let your dog sleep on Dad's new chair? Were you helping when your kids rubbed chip grease into the sofa? Were you helping when Kyle wore Dad's robe and drank all the beer I bought for him? He's loud, my mother whispered from the sofa. A pathetic old excuse. He's a thief, Mom, I said, not looking at her. I looked at Julia. And you're a liar. Julia's face hardened. The sugar was gone. Now came the guilt. This was her second weapon, the one she used to shape my parents' world. Oh, I see, she spat. You think money makes you better than us? You think you can just swoop in here with your big fancy gift? She said, the word gift like it was poison. And now you get to control everyone? You're a cold, empty person, Olivia. You have all this money, and you have no heart. You've always looked down on us. You've always thought you were better. You're right about one thing, I said. I am better. I'm better prepared. I pulled out my phone. It was my last document. You think this is about money or feelings, Julia. It's not. This is about facts. And here are the facts. I held up my phone. I had been busy. Here, I said, is a printout of the text messages you sent to your friend Amy. My sister bought them a beach house. We're moving in. LOL. She's so dumb. And the old man will be easy to handle. She's been a doormat her whole life. I'm assuming she is Mom. My mother let out a tiny, strangled gasp. And here, I said, scrolling, is the text you sent to Dad 2 days ago. The day I told you not to come. My father was looking at the floor. I'll read it aloud, I said. It's very touching. Dad, you know how Mom gets. She's just stressed. We'll be there tomorrow. Don't worry. It'll be fine. We just need a place to crash for a while. You know how Liv is, she'll get over it. He'll cave if Mom cries. Can't wait for the beach era. Julia's face cracked. It was beautiful. It was the face of a liar who had finally been caught in a spotlight. She had no words. There was no way to spin this. No way to make this my fault. Kyle, however, had plenty of words. He puffed his chest out. This was not a negotiation for him. This was a dominance display, that's it. He shouted, stepping toward me. He was trying to use his size to intimidate me. You're not doing this. This is family. You can't just show private texts. You can't throw us out. I know our rights. We've been here for 48 hours. We have established residency. We are tenants. You will have to evict us. It will take months, he smiled. A rotten, yellow-toothed smile. We'll see you in court, Olivia. We'll own this place by the time we're done with you. I didn't step back. I looked at this loud, stupid, aggressive man and I felt nothing. No fear, no anger, just pity. He was a small, yapping dog trying to scare a wolf. Try me, I said. I turned my phone around. I showed him the screen. This, I said, is a drafted email to the Homeowners Association for this community. The subject line is, unauthorized occupants and illegal rental activity at 12 Seaside Lane. In it, I detail that my elderly parents are being taken advantage of by family members who are running an illegal short-term rental business in violation of the HOA covenants. I have attached the Airbnb listing, your names, and photos of your car's license plate. Kyle's smile faltered. This, I said, swiping to the next screen, is a drafted email to the county recorder's office. The subject line is, Inquiry regarding elder fraud, coercion and violation of an irrevocable trust. In it, I ask for a wellness check on my parents, Samuel and Ruth Miller, as I believe they are being coerced into housing relatives who are attempting to defraud them and steal from their trust. You wouldn't, Julia whispered. Her face was white. This, I said, swiping again, is my official complaint, already filled out to the Airbnb fraud department. Subject, fraudulent listing, 12 Seaside Lane. It proves you are not the owner and have no right to list the property. They will be canceling your listing, freezing any funds you've collected, and banning your account. Probably by noon today. Kyle was no longer puffing. He was shrinking. And this, I said, swiping one last time to my text messages. This is a text thread with a locksmith named Victor. He is currently parked 2 houses down in a gray van. He is on standby. I looked up from the phone and met Kyle's terrified, angry eyes. You have 5 minutes to get your family and your dog out of my parents' house. If you are not in your car by the time I count to 300, I am sending all 3 emails. I am calling the police to report you for trespassing. And I am texting Victor to come and change the locks, whether you are inside or out. I let the silence sit. Kyle looked at Julia. Julia looked at me. My parents looked at the floor. You're a, Kyle stammered. I'm a neurosurgeon, I said. I remove tumors. You are a tumor. I lifted my thumb and held it over the send button on my text to Victor. 5 minutes. Olivia? My mother began, her voice a weak, pleading thread. Don't do this. They're family. I looked at my mother. I looked at her, really looked at her gray, terrified face, at her hands twisted in her lap. This woman who had taught me to be quiet. This woman who had called me the strong one as an excuse to be weak. This woman who was still, even now, still trying to manage the feelings of the people who were hurting her. My heart hardened. Not into cruelty, but into clarity. I was not just protecting the house. I was protecting them from themselves. Julia saw her opening. Yeah, Mom, tell her. Tell her she can't do this to us. My mother looked at Julia. She looked at Kyle. She looked at the muddy floor, the chip crumbs, the broken dream of her peaceful house. Then, she looked at me. Her eyes were full of tears. But for the first time in my life, they weren't tears of fear. They were tears of something else. Surrender. She took a slow, rattling breath. Do what you need to, she whispered. It was the quietest word in the room, but it was the loudest sound I had ever heard. It was permission. It was the key. It was the yes I had been waiting for my entire life. I pressed send. The whoosh of the text message sending was a definitive, final sound. A small blue bubble appeared on my screen. On my way. ETA 2 minutes. The spell was broken. Julia's reaction was not anger. It was a complete childlike collapse. She didn't just cry. She wailed. It was the same tantrum she'd thrown as a 10-year-old, demanding new shoes. A high-pitched, performative shriek of disbelief and victimhood. "You're ruining my life," she screamed, sinking to her knees on the muddy rug. "We have nowhere to go. You're throwing children out on the street. My kids, you're a monster, Olivia. A monster. I hate you. I hate you." Kyle's reaction was pure, impotent rage. "You'll be hearing from my lawyer," he shouted, his face purple. "This is illegal. This is an illegal eviction. You can't you can't." He was pacing, grabbing his phone, then putting it down. He was a trapped animal, all bluster with no actual plan. He had no lawyer. He had no rights. He just had his own echo. Through the window, I saw the gray van pull up. A man got out. He was not a big guy. He was just a man with a large metal toolbox. He was calm, professional. He'd seen this before. He walked up the steps and nodded at me through the open door. "Ma'am, you called for a rekey?" "Yes, Victor. Thank you for coming. I need every lock on this house changed, including the sliding glass door in the garage." Victor nodded. "Got it." He set his toolbox down on the porch and got to work. He completely and totally ignored Kyle, who was yelling in his face. He ignored Julia, who was sobbing on the floor. He just started whistling, a low, tuneless sound as he unfastified the front deadbolt. That sound, the whir of his electric screwdriver, was the starting pistol. The packing began. It was not quiet. It was not dignified. It was the ugly, messy excision I knew it had to be. The kids, who had been frozen, finally broke. The younger one, seeing his mother on the floor, started screaming too. The older one, Leo, the one I paid for braces for, just stood by the wall. His face was pale. He was watching his parents. He was ashamed. He didn't cry. He just turned, walked silently to my room, the guest room, and started putting his clothes in a backpack. He didn't throw things. He just packed. My heart broke for him, but I knew. This was the only way. Julia, seeing Victor at the door, finally scrambled up. "You can't do this!" she screamed at him. Victor didn't even look at her. "Ma'am, I'm just here to do my job. You're gonna want to stand back." Julia's packing was a performance of destruction. She ran into the kitchen and started grabbing the food I had bought. "We're taking this. You owe us this." She threw the expensive coffee, the pasta, the wine into a cardboard box. She grabbed the new kettle and shoved it in too. "You can have it," I said. "It's just stuff." This made her angrier. She wanted me to fight. I wouldn't. She ran to the linen closet. She took the new fluffy towels I had bought for Mom. She threw them on the wet, muddy floor of the entryway. "Whoops," she sneered. Kyle was just carrying suitcases. He was sullen, silent, defeated. He grabbed their duffel bags, throwing them out onto the front lawn. The dog was barking, running in and out of the house, adding to the absolute chaos. "You'll never see us again." Julia shrieked at me, her face blotchy and red. "You'll never see your nephews again. I hope you're happy. I hope you're happy alone in your empty house with your money." "I am happy to be alone," I said. My mother was still on the sofa, crying silently into her hands. My father had not moved. He just sat there, his face gray, watching the destruction, watching his other daughter tear the house apart. It took 3 hours. 3 full hours of screaming, crying, and the thud of bags being thrown. Victor worked his way around the house, a quiet whirlwind of efficiency. The click of an old tumbler falling, the whir of the drill, the solid final thunk of a new deadbolt sliding into place. Kyle tried one last jab as he carried the last box out. He stopped at the door and looked at my parents. "Your parents are going to be all alone. I hope you're happy, Olivia. You just destroyed your own family." "No," I said, holding the door open for him. "I just saved it." He spat on the porch, grabbed the dog's leash, and hauled his screaming kid to the car. The car was a beat-up sedan, already stuffed with bags. Julia got in the passenger seat. She didn't look at me. She just stared straight ahead. But as they pulled out of the driveway, her head turned. She gave me one last look. It was not sadness. It was not regret. It was pure, unadulterated hatred. It was the look of someone who would never, ever forgive me for stopping her. And I felt nothing, just relief. The car turned the corner. It was gone. The silence that fell was deafening. It was heavier than the shouting. The house was a complete disaster. The rug was ruined. There was mud and garbage everywhere. The sofa cushions were on the floor. The kitchen cabinets were hanging open, but it was quiet. I stood in the doorway and just breathed. I could smell the salt air again. Victor came up behind me. "All done, ma'am." New deadbolts on all 3 doors. "Garage clicker's been recoded. Here are your new keys. 2 for you, 2 for your folks." He handed me 4 shiny new keys. I paid him. I gave him a $200 tip. "Thank you, Victor." "You have no idea." He just smiled. "You have a good day now." He got in his van and drove away. I closed the front door. I slid the new deadbolt into place. The click was the most satisfying sound I had ever heard. I turned around. The house was a wreck. My mother, who had been silent, let out a new kind of cry. It wasn't the thin, anxious cry of my childhood. It wasn't the silent, terrified cry of the confrontation. It was a deep, gasping sob of relief. It was the sound of a spring, held tight for 50 years, finally uncoiling. My father slowly got up from the chair. He walked past me out onto the porch. I gave him a minute, then I followed him. He was just staring at the water. The sun was setting. "I thought I'd be stronger," he whispered, his back to me. I'm the man of the house." I should have said something. I should have stopped them the day they came. His shoulders were shaking. He was ashamed. I stood next to him. We looked at the ocean. "You were strong, Dad," I said quietly. He shook his head. "I was weak. I just let them. I let them walk all over us." "All over your mother." "No," I said. "You did the strongest thing you could possibly do. You let go. You let me handle it. You didn't try to figure it out. You didn't try to make it quiet. You let it be loud. You let it be fixed." He turned to look at me, his eyes red. "You called Mom," I said. "She called me. You asked for help. That was the strong part, Dad. You let me in. You let me do what you couldn't." He didn't say anything. He just nodded. He reached out and squeezed my arm. We stood there for a long time, just watching the sky turn pink, breathing in the clean, cold, quiet air. The first thing I did was open every single window. I let the cold, sharp, salty air rush in and flush out the smell of stale beer and chaos. My parents were still shell-shocked. They were sitting on the sofa, looking at the ruin of the room, the muddy footprints, the discarded wrappers, the broken lamp Julia had accidentally knocked over. "Go to bed," I told them. "Both of you. Go into your room, lock the door, and go to sleep. I'll handle this." "Olivia, no, it's too much," my mother protested weakly. "I'm not asking, Mom. I'm telling you." "Go rest. This part is for me." They went. I heard the click of their bedroom door. Then I began the cleanup. It was a physical act. It was a ritual. I was not just cleaning a house. I was reclaiming a sanctuary. I gathered the new towels Julia had thrown on the floor. I put them in the washing machine with a cup of bleach. I wanted to erase her fingerprints. I got on my hands and knees. I scrubbed the muddy footprints off the hardwood floor. I scrubbed until the wood shined again. I took the new sofa cushions, the ones with the orange, greasy handprints. I carried them outside onto the deck. I scrubbed them with soap and hot water in the dark, under the single porch light. I was a surgeon, and this was my OR. I was excising the last trace of the disease. I threw out the ruined rug. I rolled it up, all the mud and chips and shame, and dragged it out to the curb. I took every glass Kyle had used, every plate, and I washed them by hand in water as hot as I could stand. It took me 4 hours. At 2 a.m. I was done. The house was clean. It was quiet. It smelled like bleach and lemon soap in the ocean. I sat on the damp, clean sofa, and finally, for the first time, I cried. The noise started the next morning. It was not a surprise. My phone, which I had left charging, was a minefield. 23 missed calls. All from Julia, 15 text messages. All from Julia. They started angry. "You're a monster. I hope you die alone." Then they became pleading. "Where are we supposed to go? The kids are cold. Please, Liv, I'm sorry. Just let us come back." Just for a week, I read them. I felt a small, familiar pang of guilt. The 10-year-old fixer inside me whispered, "They're cold." "You did this." I blocked her number. Then the flying monkeys started. The calls from extended family. Aunt Clara was first. "Olivia, I just heard the most awful story. I cannot believe you would do that to your sister. She has children. To throw them out on the street? In this economy! Your mother is so disappointed. Were you there, Aunt Clara?" I asked. "Well, no, but Julia told me." "Then you don't know what happened." I hung up. I blocked her number. The real bomb, however, was online. Julia had launched her campaign. I saw the Facebook post. My cousin had tagged me in it. The photo was a bad one of me from a family Thanksgiving 5 years ago. I was holding a glass of wine and I was caught mid-blink. I looked arrogant and drunk. The caption was a masterpiece of manipulation. "This is my successful sister, the neurosurgeon, Dr. Olivia Miller." She used my title. Of course she did. Yesterday, she came to the new house she gifted our parents and threw me, my husband, and my 2 small children out on the street. Why? Because we wanted to visit our parents. We have nowhere to go. We are currently sleeping in our car. I guess this is what happens when money makes you cruel and empty inside. Please pray for us. Family betrayal. When money makes you cruel, homeless, it had over 200 comments. That is monstrous. I'm so sorry. Dr. Olivia Miller, you should be ashamed of yourself. This isn't how we were raised. Your mother and father are good people. Call your sister and apologize, Olivia. I'm sending you $50, Julia. Stay strong. She was already funding her next grift. I read the comments. I saw the rage from strangers. I saw the disappointment from family members who only heard her side. I logged out. I did not reply. I did not defend myself. I would not feed it. Later that day, I got an email. It was from Kyle. The subject line was, "Official cease and desist." It was written in bright red 24-point Comic Sans. "You are hereby ordered to cease and desist all actions against my family. We will be pursuing legal action for damages of emotional distress, illegal eviction, and theft of property. You owe us compensation. You have 24 hours to remit payment or we will see you in court." It was the most pathetic, laughable thing I had ever seen. I deleted it. I marked his email as spam. I turned off my phone. The noise was outside. It couldn't get in. I spent the next week securing the house. I wasn't just cleaning. I called a security company. A nice, professional young man came and installed 2 small, discreet cameras. One pointing at the driveway, one at the back deck. Just for my parents' peace of mind, I told him. I sat with my dad and programmed the new security code for the door. "What do you want it to be, Dad?" I don't know, Livy. You pick. How about your birthday? He smiled. A small, real smile. I can remember that. I went to a local gift shop. I bought a new, beautiful, simple wooden sign. I hung it by the front door myself. It said, "Welcome home, Sam and Ruth." And then the real change began. It was slow. It was awkward. My mother, who had spent the first day just sleeping, woke up and came into the clean kitchen. She looked at the empty space where the kettle had been. She took my kettle, she whispered. "I'll buy you a new one, Mom," I said. "No," she said. Her voice was firm. "I'll buy one. I'm going to go for a walk, into town. I'll buy one myself," she went. She was gone for an hour. She came back with a new kettle and a bag of flour. That afternoon, the house started to smell like cinnamon and vanilla. She was baking. She was baking the sadness out, she said. My father started fixing things. He found a squeaky hinge on the bathroom door and he oiled it. He straightened the picture frame Julia had knocked crooked. He sat on the porch in his chair and started reading a book. He wasn't fixing things that were broken. He was tending to his home. He was taking ownership. His hands weren't shaking. We sat on the porch. We drank tea. We didn't talk about Julia. We didn't talk about the Facebook post or the screaming or the locks. We talked about the tides. We talked about the book my dad was reading. We talked about a new recipe my mom wanted to try. The noise outside the walls, the texts I wasn't reading, the Facebook posts I wasn't seeing, grew smaller each day. Inside, the peace took up space again. It was a new peace. It was stronger than the first one. The first piece was just a gift. This one, we had earned. This one had boundaries. This one had new locks on the doors. A month later, I drove up for the weekend. I didn't call first. I just came. I stood outside the house at night. I didn't go in. Not right away. Through the window, I saw them. The new lamp I had bought was on. My father was in his chair, the one the dog had been on. He was reading, his feet up. My mom was at the kitchen table doing a puzzle. The house was quiet. It was lit from within. It smelled like the ocean. No shouting, no fear. No debt, just breathing. People online still said I ruined my family. My Aunt Clara still won't speak to me. Julia's Facebook page is still a shrine to her victimhood. They're wrong. I didn't ruin my family. I stopped funding its dysfunction. Love isn't saying yes to chaos. Love isn't paying for another emergency. Love isn't being a doormat. It's protecting peace, even if that means locking the door, because real love is a house with good light, quiet laughter, and boundaries that hold. If you've ever had to protect peace from family chaos, hit like, subscribe, and share your story below.